Second part. Mysterious as the sparkle of the blue pendant shining from the breast of his black coat was, it ranked a distant second to the gorgeous visage that showed below the traveler's hat. Astride his horse with the reins in his fist, and the beautiful youth seemed as calm as any traveler passing through by happenstance. But one look at him, and it was clear he was far from being a mere traveler. "What the hell are you supposed to be?" the man in black asked in a thick, lethargic tone. The traveler's good looks were enough to send chills down his spine. That, combined with the knowledge that this guy had just batted back his lethal attack, made him speak in this strange voice. The shadowy figure didn't answer. He moved forward, seemingly intent on casually breezing past them. "Hold up!" the man with the hexagonal staff shouted in an attempt to stop him. "Look, buddy, you might be one of the hunters that geezer called, but so are we. Sure, we might have been in the wrong flying off and taking a poke at you like that, but there's no harm in us all introducing ourselves. We're the Marcus clan. I'm Nolt, the second oldest of the boys." The shadowy figure halted his advance. "This here's Kyle, the youngest brother," Nolt continued. Eyes gleaming with animosity, the man in black made no attempt at a greeting. "The great big fella is our older brother Borgoff." Just as his brother finished introducing him, a sharp sound came from around the giant's thigh. The crescent blade, now in two pieces, fell to the ground with a shower of glittering silver flecks. The unusual break in it was not from folding, it was from squeezing. The giant wiped his bloody palm on his horse's ear. Blood stuck to the creature's coat, forcing the hair to fall in a mat. "We've got another brother, but he's sick and doesn't get out of our ride. And finally, there's Layla, our baby sister." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Tightlips." Behind that oh-so-amiable voice, Layla's bright feline eye burned with flames of hostility. However, when the face of the traveler made a rapid turn in her direction, those flames suddenly wavered. "The Marcus clan. I've heard of you," the traveler said, speaking for the first time. Without inflection, his voice was like iron, devoid of all possible emotion. The voice didn't match his incredibly good looks. But then again, no other voice would have been more appropriate. However, the fact that he spoke in such a tone even after learning the names of these men. The Marcus clan was the most skillful vampire hunting group on the frontier. Consisting of 5 members, the family from oldest to youngest was Borgoff, Nolt, Grovek, Kyle, and Layla. The number of nobles they had taken care of reached triple digits, and word of how, miraculously, none of the clan had been lost in the process circulated far and wide among the people of the frontier. At the same time, so did tales of the clan's cruelty and callousness. Nowhere did it say only one vampire hunter or group of hunters could be hired for a given case. Considering the vengeance the nobility would wreak in the event of failure, it was perfectly normal for the person concerned to employ a number of individuals, or even several groups. The Marcus clan always lasted until the very end. They alone. No individual or group that had worked with them, or against them for that matter, had ever survived. Due to the fact that none of the other hunters' corpses had ever been recovered, there was no choice but to believe the Marcus's claims that the hunters were slain by the nobility. But rumors spread like wildfire, and now an ominous storm of suspicion swirled over the clan members' heads. Be that as it may, no one doubted their abilities as hunters. After all, the number of nobility their group had single-handedly destroyed was staggering. Still, when other hunters heard the Marcus's name, the abhorrence felt was always coupled with a sense of awe over the threat that other killers felt from the clan's clearly demonstrated ability, and their willingness to use their skills for harm. In all likelihood, this was probably the first time the clan had ever heard a man say their name so calmly. "Look, jerk." Unexpectedly, the giant, Borgoff, made a strange face. Pal, I've heard about someone with your looks and a blue pendant. 10 years back, this one village elder told us there was only one hunter in all the frontier that was a match for us. That alone, he was probably tougher than all of us put together or some such thing. But you couldn't be. Giving no answer, the young man turned away, as if completely unconcerned by the bunch of fearsome villains in front of him. "Hey, wait up," the man with the hexagonal staff called out. "We're going after the noble that grabbed the geezer's daughter. If you're not with us, that makes you an enemy too. Is that the way you want it?" There was no response, and the horse and rider's silhouette was swallowed by the darkness. "We're not going to let him go, are we?" Layla asked. Indignantly, but Borgoff didn't seem to be listening. Damn, Pierre. Is that what he is, then?" he muttered with an imbecile look on his face. This was the first time the younger siblings had heard the man speak in such a tone, or say a certain mysterious name. "I finally met a man I can actually fear." D. Page break indicated by a small cross. The spot was 30 miles north of the village of Vishnu, where wholesale slaughter followed tragedy in just 2 short days. A lone black carriage rushed along the gnarled road through the forest. The 6 horses that pulled it were ebon, too, and the driver in the coachman's perch was garbed in black. The whole vehicle seemed born of the darkness. Showering the horses with merciless lashes, the driver occasionally looked to the heavens. The sky was so full of stars it seemed to be falling, and their light seemed to flicker on the face gazing up at them. The graceful visage of the driver clouded suddenly. The stars moved, those giving chase to me, 6 of them. There in the darkness, his eyes began to give off a blazing light. And no mere pursuers at that. Each possessed of extraordinary skill, one of them in particular. As if unable to contain his agitation, he stood upright in the coachman's perch, shaking the jet-black vehicle beneath his feet. I won't let them have her. I won't let anyone take her away. Light coursed from the eyes he opened wide, and blood light. And there was a sudden discordance in the monotonous drone of the carriage wheels. When turbulence had raced into that graceful face, one of the right wheels slipped off the axle with a crash. The wind groaned, and the carriage lurched wildly to the right, kicking up a thick cloud of dust as the carriage rolled over. What was truly unbelievable was the acrobatics of the driver. Releasing the reins of his own accord, sailing through the air, and skillfully twisting his body, he regained his balance, landing like a length of black cloth a few yards from the carriage. Anxiety and despair filled his face as he dashed to the vehicle. Throwing the door open like a man possessed, he peered inside. His anxiety was replaced by relief. Letting out a deep sigh, he approached the special metal alloy wagon wheel that lay some 30 feet away. So, misfortune has decided to put in an unfashionably early appearance, he muttered glumly, lifting the wheel and walking back to the carriage. He looked to the sky once again. In a low voice, he said, "Soon the day will be breaking. Seems I shall be walking to the shelter, and repairing this when it's night again. That's more than enough time for those dogs to catch up to us." Page break, indicated by a small cross. Around the time the mountain ridges were rising faintly from the darkness like the edges of so many jigsaw pieces, the pair halted their horses. They were atop a fair-sized hill. "Oh, Borgoff's got us doing some crazy shit. Riding hard in the middle of the night like this. I tell you, he's all worked up over nothing," the man in black said, giving a light wave of his right hand. The green grass below him was shaken by a dye deeper than the darkness. In the pale, panting darkness of daybreak, this man alone seemed blackly clad in the remnants of night. In a black shirt and pants, it was Kyle, the youngest of the Marcus boys. The ebon flecks that remained like stains not just on his right hand, but on his chest and shoulder as well, were splashes of blood from all the nocturnal beasts they'd cut down during their ride. "I thought he told you to stow that talk. That punk. He's no garden variety hunter. You must have heard about him, too," the man said in an attempt to settle his wild younger brother, a black staff looming on his back. The man speaking was Nolt, the second oldest. "Ha! You mean how he's a dampier?" Kyle spat the words. "A lousy half-breed, part nobility and part human. Oh, sure, everyone says they make the best vampire hunters, don't they? But let's not forget something. We slaughter real, full-blooded nobles." You've got a point there. If he's a half-breed, he's more like us than the nobility. Nothing to be afraid of. Not to mention, we even rode all night just so he wouldn't lose us. But if you ask me, our big brother's lost his nerve. Who besides us would race through a frontier forest in the middle of the night on horseback? Out on the frontier, the forests were thick with monsters by night. Though it was true the beasts' numbers had decreased with the decline of the nobility, to move through the woods before dawn you still either had to be a complete idiot, or someone endowed with nerves of steel and considerable skill. as the brothers were. It was for this reason Kyle was repulsed by the oldest of the boys, who'd ordered their charge by night so that the youth they'd met earlier wouldn't get a lead on them. Even he would be set upon by numerous creatures before he made it to this hill. The only reason they'd somehow managed to get there before daybreak was because they'd passed through the area before and knew a shortcut through the woods. "Well, I don't know about that," Nolt said wryly, and being more philosophical than the youngest boy. "We're talking about a guy that fended off your crescent blade, after all." While Kyle glared at the second oldest, Nolt's eyes glimmered. "A horse? I wouldn't have thought it possible." Kyle was at a loss for words. Sure enough, the sound of iron-shod hoofs came from the depths of the same forest from which the two brothers had just emerged. "It was no problem for us because we knew a shortcut. But that son of a—" Just as the two were exchanging glances, a horse and rider appeared from part of the forest below them, knifing through the darkness. Making a smooth break for the road, the figure struck them as being darker than the blackness. "It's him, all right," said Nolt. "He ain't getting away," Kyle shot back. And there was a loud smack at the flanks of the pair's mounts, and hoofs were soon kicking up the sod. With intense energy, they pursued the black-clad silhouette. The way he raced, he seemed the demon of the night, almost impossible to catch. "We got orders from Borgoff. Don't try nothing funny." Nolt's voice flew at Kyle's back, about a horse length ahead of him. They couldn't have Dee getting ahead of them, but even if it looked like that might happen, they weren't to do anything rash. Borgoff had ordered them not to attack in the sternest tone they'd ever heard from him. But for all that, the flames of malice burned out of control in Kyle's breast. It wasn't simply that he had the wildest and most atrocious nature of all his siblings. His lethal crescent blade attack had been warded off by Dee. For a young man with faith and strength alone, that humiliation was intolerable. What he felt toward Dee surpassed hatred, becoming nothing less than pure, murderous intent. Kyle's right hand went for the crescent blade at his waist. However, the two of them couldn't believe their eyes. They just couldn't catch up. They should have been closing the gap on the horse and rider, who didn't seem to be doing any speed faster than they were. But weren't they in fact rapidly falling farther and farther behind? Kyle screamed. Even as he put more power behind the kicks to his horse, his foe still dashed away, the tail of his black coat fluttering in the breeze he left. In no time at all, he shrunk to the size of a pea and vanished from their field of view. "Damn it, goddamn freak!" Giving up and bringing his horse to a halt, Kyle trained his flaming pupils on the point in the road that had swallowed the shadowy figure. "We ride all night, only to have this happen in the end," Nolt said bitterly. "From the looks of it, we're never going to catch up to him by normal means. Let's wait here for Borgoff to show up." Second part, end.